today we're here to talk a little bit about what's going on in our industry, particularly emerging technologies and how they are going to be affecting us in the coming years. Today with me here today is Justin Lang. Justin is the technical editor of PLSN and also runs iSquint.net, covering new technologies within the entertainment industry. And I'm the Director of Sales for Creative Stage Lighting. I also happen to be responsible for helping the company determine its future strategic directions in advancing technologies. And I'm the founder of the CSL webinar series. So for those of you who have attended previously, you know me from past years. Justin, why don't you give people a little bit more background on you and why you're here and why we decided to do this together.
Sure. My name is Justin Lang. I'm the editor of both PLSN magazine and for iSquint.net. My background is very simple. In high school, got fascinated with lighting. First, I was an actress on stage. Then I found lighting, and then just took hold. Graduated from Radford University with a degree in stage lighting, and just went from there and designed now and then. But now I have a full career of informing the industry about new products, news, and all sorts of stuff through both PLSN and iSquint.
Cool. And we were talking before we signed on here. One of the things that Justin and I were discussing, both of us kind of approached the industry from a very similar direction, and that both of us felt the need or the urge to help educate the marketplace. One of the things that we were discussing is the two of us are so close to things that are going on that sometimes you tend to assume that people know what's happening. And in some cases, we take things for granted that everybody is not always in touch with. So that's kind of the goal of what we're here today to discuss.
Right. Real quick, Kevin, one of my goals with iSquint, if you didn't know, I happened to be on the sales side before I started writing. And one of the things I saw lacking across the industry was people finding out about new products. I'm a technology geek, so this is the perfect webinar. And again, thank you for having me here. Talking about new technologies, new lighting fixtures, I love it. Just like I love my Apple products, I want to know the latest and greatest as soon as it comes out. So I started in my blog, iSquint, talking about new products, giving my opinion of them, and it just blossomed from there. One story that I love telling about is how I started it. On the sales side, I was doing a demo, and somebody asked me about an LED fixture. What's a good LED fixture? And this was before, they started really taking off. What's a good LED fixture for doing a site? Well, Celador. What's Celador? It's 7-color mixing. We all know what it is. 7-color mixing, unbelievable stuff. And it had been out for about 8 months since then. And they had no idea what I was talking about. And it just blew my mind is how did people not know about these new products? So I started writing, and from there it just started taking off.
Great. And that's actually where you and I met. I mean, sometimes I forget that, but that's going back a few years. But you and I actually started talking back in the iSquint days, long before any of the PLS stuff came about.
Oh, yeah. You're a huge supporter of iSquint, and I thank you for that.
Okay, great. No problem. So a couple of things I wanted to do. Number one was give you a little bit of an idea of why we're here. But the other thing that Justin and I wanted to do was get a better idea of a little bit about who the audience is. So we have something here called polling questions. And what it allows you to do is give us some feedback on what your organization is like, what your position with the organization is like. And then as we go on, we'll ask you some other questions about technology. And we really appreciate your participation in that because it really gives us a better idea of how to direct our conversation. So the first polling question I have for you is if you could tell us a little bit about the type of organization that you're with. And what we're going to do is basically you've got a couple of different choices here. You've got lighting production or rental company, media or AV company, church or house of worship, theater or school, or other. And I apologize for the other. I didn't know exactly what else to cover there.
You know, I'm interested if people are putting other, if they could write it in the questions area, if that's possible.
They actually can't. I think I'll have to. The way that these polling questions are set up, I haven't had the opportunity to give them live feedback in this. There's some other ones. There's some post questions afterwards where they can give us feedback. So anybody who wants to respond to the survey they get after the webinar is over, you can also give us more background. If you're in that other category, what does that constitute?
Okay, great.
So while I'm waiting, we've got a lot of people, but they're still responding. So just to give you a little bit of background, we first did a Converging Technologies webinar back in 2009, and we talked a lot about where technology was going and where we saw it going in the future. One of the things that caused me to want to do this again today is how rapidly the change has come. It has gone way beyond our wildest dreams in terms of how quickly things have moved and how rapidly technology has advanced. And, you know, I always make mention, my background is in the computer industry, and one of the things I always mention to people is I see a lot of parallels here, and the same curve is true here in terms of technology advancing while pricing comes down. So not only is the technology getting better, it's also making it much more affordable. So that's, I think, you know, a couple of the keys we wanted to focus in on is what have we seen happen in the course of the last few years since we did the last one in 2009 that are really changing the way that our industry works. So I've got about 86% of you that have voted now, actually almost up to 90%. So I'm going to close the poll out, and basically to give you an idea, 52% of you are with lighting or production companies. 6% are media or AV. We don't have anybody here, or at least nobody that is admitting to being with church or house of worship, but they may be joining us later. 23% are with theaters or schools, and 19% are in that infamous other category. So we'll have to take a look at that and see, you know, exactly where all of that comes in. So let's move on then. So basically, some of the areas that we're looking at, we're talking about not only what convergence, which is how all these technologies are being combined together, but also where we have seen the greatest advancements. And there are some areas that we see that are really driving the industry. And, you know, Justin, please feel free to jump in at any point, because I have a tendency to talk a lot. But where we've seen the changes are in LED lighting. There has been a huge shift there. In the moving light arena, there's been some advancements and some changes in the way of thinking, because we've actually seen going back to bigger isn't necessarily better. We see a lot of manufacturers who are looking at things that are smaller and more cost-effective, energy efficient, that nature. High-resolution LED walls, media server, pixel mapping, 3D mapping. We see some real major changes there. Digital, 3D, HD projection, and improvements in both the power and the ease of use of the hardware and software that's driving all of this. So that's kind of our general overview. Justin, you know, any things in particular that you see in those areas that you would want to highlight before we get into the individual segments?
Oh, LEDs. LEDs is on everybody's mind right now. I think this is going to be our first topic here, so we might as well go into that.
Sure.
LEDs have changed in the last 3 years. They've changed in the last day, probably. They just haven't talked about them yet. This past year, not necessarily 2012, but since last LDI, we've seen a huge increase in LED ellipsoidals. Ever since we had the bright idea, somebody had the bright idea of bringing LEDs into stage lighting or entertainment lighting, the question's been, when's it going to be an ellipsoidal? When's it going to be an ellipsoidal? I want to get rid of my LECO light, you know, at 575 or greater, and replace it with a 250-watt LED fixture. Well, good news, this past year we've seen that happen. Are they replacement fixtures? I'm not going to get into that debate, but they're getting better. And just like we've seen with LEDs, they were really expensive. Their output was marginal when they first started appearing, but now they're coming down in price. They're still relatively on the higher side of price, but they're getting better to where they can be replacements for certain types of lighting. Will front light ever be all LED? Just like my predecessor said, give it till 5 o'clock tomorrow. We'll see. You know, there's going to be times. We just need a little bit more time to let the LED grow up. So when will the LED finally grow up? I can't look into the future. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but pretty quickly. I think it's kind of like our kids. They grow up way too fast, kind of thing. But what we've, a couple of the points that we wanted to highlight here is, one of the concerns early on with LEDs, they were kind of looked at as nice toys. They were nice, but the output just wasn't there, and people were concerned that they weren't ever really going to come up to the level of conventional fixtures. Well, we're now starting to see fixtures, not necessarily in the LECO category yet, but we're seeing some stuff in the moving light category where we've got LED fixtures that are now the equivalent to a 1,500-watt conventional. So you're getting some pretty good brightness coming out of them. The other thing that we see, and I used to hear this a lot from designers in particular, was they really didn't like that pixelated look of the early versions of LEDs. So that whole red, green, blue, the rainbow effect, they had a lot of things that they were concerned about. Now we're seeing more and more multi-chip LEDs. So basically what you're looking at, we've got one fixture that we work with called the JB Lighting A12. It's a moving light. It has 61 15-watt multi-chips. So each chip is red, green, blue, white, and it really does a nice job of getting rid of that. There is no pixelation. There is no shadowing. The other thing we find is that, particularly in the better quality fixtures, Justin had mentioned Celador. There's a variety of lines that are in that same kind of category. ETC, Strand, Pixel Range, Roby, Color Kinetics, and the list goes on beyond that. All have come up with much more consistent binning of colors, which means there's consistency across all fixtures. So you're not getting that, different shades of red when you look at the same fixture that's supposed to be dialed into the same color. They are now actually, dialed right in.
Well, what I think is interesting, Altman with their SpectraSight fixture, you mentioned the binning process, binning being with LEDs pulling the same LED from the bin so they basically match across the fixtures. Well, Altman is able to go back and say, you bought this one at this time, and they're able to adjust new fixtures, a year, 2, 3, whatever years away, to match the new fixture to the old fixture, and even the degradation of the LEDs. Because you've been using this fixture already for however long, a year, 2, 3 years, they're able to not only color correct it or correct it towards the same LEDs that you had, but the use. So they're not, the new fixture's not a little bit brighter than your older fixtures. And I'm starting to see that come around too in different manufacturers, where they're able to track your fixtures and match new ones if you decide to add on to your system.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing how far things have come in such a short period of time, and how quickly manufacturers have recognized and addressed a lot of the concerns. We're seeing now that where early on, because we are primarily a rock and roll company, the rental side of our business, does things like Maroon 5 and Train and, a variety of other rock groups. Where we've started to see is a lot of traction in LED is with clients that we work with, dealers that we work with, who are selling into the church market and the school market and the club market, that LED now is becoming much more mainstream in all of those markets as well. So, that's something that we've seen that, is encouraging to us. And we've also seen the improvements of some of the vendors that used to be considered much more in the DJ category, to the point where they now have products that are much more professional level, and particularly when you're talking about going into installations, companies like Elation and Chavez, have lines that really fit well in certain marketplaces. You look at companies like Roby Lighting, who's done a great job not only on the entertainment side, but also on the architectural side with their Enolis line. They give people a lot more options to pursue LED as a practical lighting application, not only for entertainment, but for general lighting purposes as well.
Right, right.
And I think the key there is it comes down to this last point, which is cost is now coming into alignment for most venues. So whereas it was much more in the realm of the big production companies with the bigger budgets, now the small to medium-sized production guys, as well as a lot of the installation guys, are also able to delve into this market as well. Before I move, or as I move on, I wanted to go ahead and ask our second polling question, and that is, what is your title or position with your company? So your choices there are going to be you are the company owner or manager, you're a designer or programmer, you're a light tech or an AV tech, you're a teacher or student, and again, that all infamous other category. So we'll take a few moments to answer that while we move on to the next slide. And what I wanted to talk a little bit about here was moving lights.
Kevin, real quick.
Yeah, go ahead, Justin.
Yeah, real quick before we go into moving lights, I wanted to mention something about cost, and while everybody's answering the poll, the cost of any fixture goes back to you got to spend money to make money. But when we start looking at LED fixtures, everybody hem and haws because they see, $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 for an LED par fixture, where there are others on the market, half or a quarter of the price. Grant, you're getting what you paid for. I like stressing how people need to learn about the cost, the ROI, return on investment. Not only are you spending, we'll say, $1,000 up front for a fixture, but you have to look at the long term, how that fixture is going to save you money, not only energy, lamp replacement, gel replacement, HVAC cost, and labor. These are all things to take into account when looking at upgrading your system. So if you're looking at doing a site, we'll say you spend $10,000 on LEDs versus a tungsten replacement, which is maybe half of that, $5,000. Maybe that $10,000 investment will be paid for in 2 years. This, with all of the things I mentioned, HVAC and everything, for the life of your tungsten fixtures. So I just wanted to mention that real quick while everybody's finishing up the poll.
Yeah, no, and that's a valid point. And since I tend to come with stuff from the rental and production side of things, a lot of those same points are valid. We're not as tied into energy consumption because the venue is paying for that. There's a variety of other things there. But the things that we are concerned about are things like weight, size of fixtures, how much truck pack it's going to take up, and and what's the cost of maintenance on a fixture. How much work does it constitute each time we bring it back in from a rental? And with LED, you've got a lot less moving parts involved, even if it's in a moving light or obviously in a conventional fixture. But you also have longer lamp life, so you're not having to relamp fixtures every time you bring them back in from a show. There's a lot of advantages that we see in LED as well, and it kind of passes us right into this moving light piece. So as far as the poll, let me give you an idea of where we came in there. 32% said that they're either a company owner or manager. 32% said they're a designer or programmer. In a lot of cases, I would bet you that's the same people because owners tend to also be designer programmers. We all wear a lot of hats in this business. 6% say light tech or AV tech, 10% teacher student, and again 19% in that all other category. So thanks for participating, and that gives Justin and I a better idea of direction to take things as we're moving forward. So in terms of moving lights, we've seen that same kind of evolution. One of the things that I remember 3 years ago was it seemed like for a period of time their manufacturers were on the bigger is better bend. And we started seeing moving lights that were in the 110 to 130 pound category, which nobody who's having to go out and set up a rig really wants to have to try to muscle around. It really makes life difficult on that end. What we've seen now are fixtures that are smaller, brighter, and more efficient from the standpoint of energy consumption. A couple of fixtures that we can talk about there. I'm really impressed with some of the things that Rovi is doing. They have come out with some fixtures like the MMX, which has got, it weighs like 52 pounds, which is probably about 2/3 to half the weight of comparable fixtures. It's got the output of a 1200 watt, and it's got, it's just got some really nice features built into it. But they're just one in a whole range of people who are building some things that, one of the things I think I've noticed is that moving light developers now seem like they're really taking design issues into account, and they're really keying in on what people are asking for. So if you look at, for instance, the light that we have highlighted up in the upper right-hand corner up there, is the JB Lighting A12. That's the one I was mentioning before that has the 15-watt multi-chip LEDs. It's also got zoom range from 10 to 50 degrees, so it can truly be used as a wash and a beam light. Very, very, very good output, and about 1/3 the weight of comparable conventional halide type fixtures. The Rovi 1200 and others would be in that same kind of category. Martin Aura is another fixture that that has addressed a lot of the needs of the marketplace, and people are taking that in different directions. But I think they're much more about practical use and needs, and how are people really looking to use the lights.
Well, what I think is interesting about moving lights, the couple that you've mentioned right here, the A12 and the Aura, we're seeing these fixtures being turned around. We're not necessarily lighting the stage all the time with these fixtures anymore. We're able to turn these around and do some eye candy for the audience or the camera, whichever way you want to look at, to put low res or, depending on the fixture, doing simple graphics on these fixtures that can now not only move around, but light up an audience, light up the stage, or provide dazzling looks to the eye.
Exactly.
You try and do that with the tungsten. That ain't going to happen.
Yeah, the other thing that that has developed as part of this, in the case of the LED fixtures, as the LEDs themselves have improved, we're getting much closer in terms of quality of white light. So somebody that is looking for that tungsten look because they're doing a video shoot or something like that, you look at something like the Barrowlight VLX. It actually has a tungsten mode, so you can, via software, do settings so that from the camera perspective, it looks just like a tungsten light. So there's a lot of things there that they've done that, again, take into account what people are really looking for. And as Justin was mentioning, if you look at the face on the A12 or some of these other fixtures, it allows you to pixel map the face of that fixture to do a variety of different effects. So it really gives the designer a lot of different options. Now it's, like you said, not just a wash light or not just a beam. There's a lot of different ways that they can use these things.
Right. So now a rig is not going to have a bunch of fixtures just for lighting the stage or aerials. They're going to use one fixture to do multiple of different things. The aerial beams, the wash, the eye candy, in some cases even strobing. Yep. Some of these fixtures are getting so bright they can act as strobes, and since they're LEDs, they can work just as well as, well, close to some of the strobes out there, like the atomic and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Not a direct replacement, but it will work.
Yeah, yeah. And that's, it's an interesting point, because one of the other things I know I've looked at is you look at some manufacturers like Comar. Comar's come out with their multi-lamp technology. Now, where this is really key is in installations and small to mid-sized production companies who are really looking to maximize their investment by being able to extend the use of their fixtures. And with their case, they're able to go from a halide to a tungsten in the same fixture. Their M-series, you can swap them out, and they can go from a 575 to a 700-watt lamp. So, again, depending on the venue that you're doing and, what we're looking to do, if we're shooting video versus doing a rock show, we're going to be able to use the same fixture and just swap out the lamp, which is a whole lot cheaper than somebody having to have, two sets of inventory for two different kinds of venues.
Right.
Okay. So moving on from moving lights, one of the other areas that we've seen a lot of changes is in LED walls and panels. And again, this has, kind of paralleled that whole same growth of LEDs. So brighter, and also the cost has been reduced. So, now we've got walls that are down to 6 mil or better resolution. Do you know of ones out there that are higher than that, Justin?
In lower resolution, not off the top of my head, no.
Yeah, I know, Martin, again, Roby, even now the Chavez and Elation, they're all coming out with LED panel kind of products that are getting into a very cost-effective range. They're getting brighter. There's greater portability. They're making them with lighter materials. They're making them so that they're mounting the LEDs in plastic mounting so that it's see-through, so that you can actually use it like a scrim, have lights behind it. When you take down the LED wall lights, you can have your lights projecting out through it, and it virtually becomes invisible. Then you dim your lights behind and bring the LED wall back up, and you can do your whole projection surface and do live camera output and a variety of other things. And again, we've seen, yes.
I'm sorry. The other neat thing about Elation has a bendable screen, a bendable video screen that is pretty impressive. It's not totally 360 wrap unless you get it large enough, but you're able to wrap it around some stuff now.
Okay. No, that's cool. Yeah, no, that's true. That is, that whole thing with flexibility. I've seen quite a few acts now where, and even stage sets, where they've taken and kind of molded the LED wall to fit the need, either by making it a curved surface or actually involving it right into the components. While we're going through, there's some questions popping up, and as I see them being applicable, I'll try to bring them in. We have a question, and I don't really know this, but maybe you do, Justin. Matt is asking, are LED UV lights going to be discussed at all? I don't have any real knowledge of that. We don't use it in our applications, but I don't know what you might know about it, or if there's anything you want to add to that.
The only one that pops up in my head right now is the Altman fixture. I've seen it at a couple trade shows. I haven't had a chance to really look at it. It's the only true UV fixture that I've seen out there. Are there others? Possibly. I just don't know about them. Okay. Yeah, and that's pretty much mine. I know a couple of vendors. I know Color Kinetics used to have a UV light, and they discontinued it. A lot of these guys need to go by they're driven by demand, and they're responding to the needs of the marketplace. If they see a need and they get enough requests, they'll make it. The one from Altman is the 30-watt LED blacklight Spectra UV30. I just looked it up for you. Okay, cool. Thank you. It's on their website, altmanlighting.com. Yep. Rick asks, any thoughts regarding the future of CTO, CTV aspects of LEDs?
from my perspective, in terms of color correction, a lot of that is driven off the, number one, the LEDs are much more responsive to that. Most of the fixtures that I'm aware of have color correction, and they do a really good job of that, and it's all driven through whatever the lighting control that you're using, is gonna drive. But again, if I look at some of the examples we have, all of the JB LED fixtures have color correction, so you can bring it into that exact, if you need to bring a little additional element of blue into your white, or you need to go a little bit more to the yellow side, it gives you that level of control. Most of them now also are pretty much in tune with all of the color swatch colors. So if you want to dial it into a very specific Roscoe or Lee, most controls now have those exact listings, so you can just dial it in from that. And from what I've seen, once you get into an RGBW or an RGBA fixture, it does a really good job of color matching those types of things.
That's the beauty part about having an RGB, even AW fixtures, red, green, blue, amber, and white fixtures. You can easily color correct a LED fixture. And then there, like you mentioned before, the fixture, you can even do that on board.
Yep. Okay, Matt also, or is that Matt? No, that's Terry. Terry also wants to know, other than the lamp inside, what's making the fixture lighter in weight?
Ballast. There's no ballast.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the huge weight problem right there.
Yeah, if you look at any LED fixture, but particularly the if we look at a moving light, first of all, with the head of the moving light itself, you don't have any moving parts in there. You don't have any, or very limited. I mean, if you've got a zoom range in there, you've got basically some worm gears that drive an optic back and forth. But you don't have all of the belts and gears and everything else that has to be inside of the head of, the barrel of a moving head fixture. Mm-hmm. And then if you go to the ballast and the body of it themselves, you'll notice if you look at any of the LEDs that are out there, their footprint is minuscule compared to that of a conventional moving light. Most conventionals, it's the size of an old-fashioned PC, the base of the moving light. With these new ones, the footprint of it is, in some cases, not any bigger than the head itself, and in a lot of cases, even smaller than the head itself. We have a fixture that we use a lot in our rental called the JB A7, and it's as bright as a 700-watt fixture in full white, probably brighter in the saturated color. It only weighs 18 pounds. You can literally pick it up with one hand and walk it up into a rig. You look at a Max 700, and you're looking at a fixture that's about 3 times that heavy. So, and the same is true to a lesser degree when you're talking about static LEDs, basically because they don't have the, generally they've got some cooling fins, they may have a couple of cooling fans, but they don't have the ballast and all the other issues that you have to deal with the older-fashioned conventional fixtures. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm going to move on because we've got some additional questions. But just let me tell you now, if we don't get to your question during the session, we will be able. I can get to them after the fact via email. I have each of your email addresses, and what I can do is we save all the inquiries, and I can get back to you with anything that we're not able to, because some of them are very specific to your own individual needs, and I'd be glad to address those. On an individual basis. So a couple of the questions we started having come in were about pixel mapping. And this is a really evolving technology. I mean, it's been around for a couple of years, but we're seeing a lot of advancements going on there. So basically, pixel mapping is the use of software to map and replay media, motion, whatever, onto an array of lighting fixtures. Now, some people think of it purely in the form of running an LED wall or running a bank of LEDs. But where pixel mapping is actually going is you can map every light in a rig. So whether it's a moving light, a conventional, an LED, whatever, you can map it the same way you would be mapping an LED wall, and you're just grabbing, you're including that as part of your whole array of control. So some of the things that we've seen there, the software is making it easier all the time. You know, in the past, there were a lot of things where you had to actually be a programmer, and you really needed to go in and at that programming level type in a lot of values and map things out and give DMX addresses and a variety of other things. The software now has evolved to the point where it's now doing a lot of that stuff automatically for you. You're also able to do things like program the individual rigs on an LED fixture, things like that. So mapping can be at the rig level right on down to the fixture level. We found it's becoming faster and easier, and we're finding it's becoming a more economical solution as more and more desks included as part of their base package. So even some of the desks from a price standpoint that would be affordable still include you know, some really good pixel mapping software within it.
Right.
Justin, what are your thoughts there?
I think the easiest way to understand pixel mapping is if you're on stage and you're looking at your front of house rail, you have all these, we'll say, RGB ellipsoidals. We're hypothesizing here. Someday we'll have that. You're looking at the front rail and you see all these fixtures come down. You can take an image of a rainbow, and if you map these fixtures in that sequence, you can throw that image into the pixel map, and it'll automatically make that same image, low res of course, going across those LED fixtures. Now, where is this going to be beneficial? Well, just like that, creating a rainbow with those fixtures rather than having, on some consoles is a lot easier, but you used to have to change each individual fixture, adjust the color values, or, you know, thinking about it, dropping gel, that was a nightmare. But pixel mapping makes it easier to make an image or motion on stage. Where is this going to be beneficial? Name it. There's a number of places where it's going to make life so much simpler.
Oh yeah, I mean we are seeing it in, you're seeing it in everything from any of the big production events. I mean, you look at any of the things that people are really familiar with now, like X Factor, American Idol. They are great examples of this whole concept of convergence. But if you look at what they're doing in a lot of the backgrounds on those LED walls, it's a perfect example of pixel mapping. They're basically, you know, and the software, depending upon which control you're using, it can be as simple as just mapping out all your fixtures, dropping a JPEG in, and then, or an MPEG, and then allowing that to run through all your fixtures or your whole array.
Right.
Now we had a question about what's the most popular software for pixel mapping. It's really, that's one of those personal preference kind of things. And it's really, you know, from my perspective, it's looking at the lighting control that you like the best and seeing what they're doing with pixel mapping. You know, I've had experience with a variety of products. One of the products that we happen to work with extensively is the Avolite line of desks, and they've done some significant things in their product over the course of the last couple of iterations of their Titan software, to the point where they've made pixel mapping very easy. They started out in a very basic way, just being able to map the fixtures, and then going in and dropping different colors in, and then dropping shapes and animation and a variety of different things. So you're basically creating your own. They're now evolving to the point where you can come and drop an animated clip in, and you're going to be able to run, you know, an MPEG file or something like that, and then you're just doing whatever kind of color changing and chases and things that you want to do with that.
You know, another one that I want to mention is ETCs, the EOS family of consoles. They have pixel mapping built in. ETC is actually running a thing right now, shows your ETC for colleges, where students and stuff submit videos to win a board. I'm kind of jealous I'm not in school anymore, but One of the ones that sticks out in my mind and is perfect for talking about pixel mapping, Conservatory of Music, they entered in a video early on. Here, I'll put it in the question there. They took a black and white photo of Fred Foster, the founder of ETC, president of ETC, and they took 100 source 4s, 10 by 10 bank, and they pixel mapped the image onto these source 4s. Now, 100 source 4s isn't going to be enough to do this photo, so they took it square by square and they brought it all together to create this image of Fred Foster in black and white using source 4s, using, I believe it was an ion in the pixel mapping feature. I'll go ahead and answer that question so everybody can see it. It's just a fascinating thing that, you know, it could be practical. Would I do it if I had the time? If I had the time to set up 100 fixtures, yeah.
Well, you know, the thing that's interesting though is it's really challenging the creative concepts. You know, it's really getting designers to think in a whole new way about how to design shows. You know, because you know we've gone from the 120K rig era of, you know, basically just a ton of park hands in a rig and, you know, lots of dimming and turning lights on and off, to, you know, the whole Genesis, Varilight, you know, moving into the realm of moving lights. But where I think we're really seeing an acceleration is in this whole area of pixel mapping, LED walls, projection, video mapping. There's just some really crazy stuff going on out there, and a lot of this has really evolved to be practical applications only within the last couple of years. You know, it really was something that, you know, was in the, it really wasn't something that a guy was comfortable putting into an everyday rig, whereas now we're seeing more and more shows that this is becoming a bigger element of.
You know, it's funny, you mentioned going forward with LEDs and these mapping walls and everything. Doug Fleener amazes me every single day. He's actually going backwards. He's introduced, I think at USITT last year, he started showing this new fixture he's calling the Edison. While everybody else is coming out with pixel mapping panels, he's coming out with a tungsten-based wall. It's super low resolution. It's using A lamps.
Okay.
And it's, I think it's a 6x6 square, 6 sockets by 6 sockets. So 24? No, 36, thank you. I think it's actually 24. Anyways, he's taking a step backwards because people are still looking for that tungsten look to do pixel mapping. Each of these sockets is individually controlled by a dimmer, and you can put as many as you want of these things together. So Doug's throwing away that whole let's save energy, let's save energy. He's saying, why not use something that we all know and love? And me, I love the look of 3200. Why not use an A-lamp? Everybody knows what it does, and do some neat pixel mapping with that. So,
exactly.
Well, so everybody else is moving forward. Doug is saying, I'm stepping back. I think it's hilarious. I love Doug Fleener for that.
Well, you know, and I think again, it's companies that are recognizing what people's needs are. You know, I think the companies that succeed are the ones that respond to what the marketplace is telling them they really want. Right. I can't tell you how many fixtures in my travels around the country visiting with different production companies, how many fixtures different companies bought into 3, 4, 5 years ago, and they're sitting in the corner collecting dust because, you know, they were a nice one-trick pony at the time, but they're really not a workhorse light that they can use on a regular basis. You know, you look at some of the things that have come out recently. You know, the Clay Packy Sharpie is one. You know, the Roby MMX. A lot of these LED heads like the A7 and the Roby 600 and the Elation Impression. I mean, these are real workhorse lights that have a practical application that people can figure out how to use, and they're going to get a return on their investment out of. And I think that's the key is, you know, are you going to be able to make your money back on this? You know, whether it's for a production guy or it's for permanent installation. What's your return going to be on this fixture?
Exactly.
So let me move on to the next slide, but at the same time, let me ask you another polling question, because we're starting to get into a couple of different technologies. And what I want to get is a better sense of what do you know? I think maybe I jumped past this one. I'm going to let you open it. No. All right. Basically, let me try opening that up a different way. But let's start talking a little bit about 3D video mapping. So it's the next evolution of pixel mapping. It's tying into this whole concept of you know, all the movies now are coming out in 3D. Well, a lot of the stuff that we're doing with mapping is three-dimensional as well. And so we're seeing a variety of different vendors that are coming out with some really strong products that are video mapping. And we'll give you a couple of examples of that as we go along. But this is really key on two sides. One, it's the media server side and the software that's driving that, which is really developed and is really making a market difference in this segment of the marketplace. And then in applications like we're showing up here, it's where projection is going. Because all of the images that we have up here, that's not actually light. That's all done via projection. And so that's something where we're seeing huge advancements in the lumen output, in the ability, you know, to throw long distances, in the resolution, you know, in terms of the pixel rate that you're able to project at. So you're getting some very high resolution things being done over long distances with video mapping. So, you know, Justin, from your standpoint, what kind of things are you seeing, writing about, hearing from vendors in the area of video mapping and projection and those kind of areas?
Some of the things that are standing out in my mind is if you've gone on YouTube, like we all do on slow times, watching these projections on sides of buildings. They map the side of a building, and you see the building fall down. Did it actually fall down? No, because it's being projected. Christy had a neat booth at Infocom last year, and I think it's still touring around on their trade show circuit, where they projected a slot machine onto a white not a white background, but a white 3D object that was the jackpot would hit, and you would think that the thing is exploding out of its place, but it's just exploding on screen. And where some of the places we're seeing this being used is one that's hot right now is Moot Math. The 3D projection that they're using on that. We've got something coming up on that here in the near future in PLSN. And the video is just unbelievable what they're doing. And it's kind of like that old Cubic game. Cubic? I forget what the game is. Showing my age here. The projection surface is very 3D, but it's not very intricate. All the work is being done in the projection.
Right.
You had an interesting one, Kevin. The mouse one, the mouse DJ. What's
yeah. We're actually going to talk a little bit about this, and for this one, I actually need to. I thought I could drive it right from here, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to jump out of the presentation for a second here, and then what we'll do is I'm going to jump over into a video that I have that we could take a look at. So basically, you know, as we mentioned, with some of the things that are going on right now. Hang on a second. We'll keep talking as I'm fiddling around trying to get this to work right.
Our technology, isn't it wonderful?
Yeah, yeah. Well, it actually looks like it might have closed a window on me here. Yep, might have. All right, so we may need to start this one again then. Okay, here we go. All right, so this is a rollout for the new Nokia Lumia that took place over in London. what we're looking at here is actually a 30-story building. And they video map the entire surface of the building with 30 projectors shooting from 100 meters away. So somebody had asked the question about what's changing with projection. Part of it is just the scope of the output. So if we look at something like this, you know, think they're actually shooting this projection from about 100 meters, which is like 3 football fields away, covering the entire surface of a 30-story building. And this is all 3D mapped. You'll notice that the building appears to be morphing on itself. There's a point in here where the entire building looks like it collapses and then rebuilds itself. But this is only one example of a whole host of different kinds of applications that are out there like this. You'll notice here it looks like the building's now collapsing on itself, and then they'll go ahead and they'll rebuild it. So, this one goes on for a while. It is available on YouTube, so all you need to do is go to YouTube and type in Milbank Tower. It's a dead mouse, the European DJ video, so you can find that over there. But that's definitely one example of how far this has come. And we see it in a lot of the major productions. You're going to see it in most of the major concerts that are going on right now. You're going to see it on things like X Factor and American Idol. They're all getting much more into this 3D video mapping kind of application. So we'll go ahead and stop that, and we'll jump back in over here. And
Kevin, everybody's still only seeing the quick pull results. We're not actually seeing. We're not actually seeing anything on screen.
Okay, all right. Let me see if I got how I close that out. Did that get rid of it?
Yeah, yep. We're back to the presentation.
So did nobody see the video then?
I guess not.
Okay. All right, let me apologize for that, and let me jump back over here for a second, and we'll show you that again. And I can take that from the point where we left off. Okay, so again, 30-story tall tower. They've mapped the whole thing out. The DJ's down here running the whole show. But you've got this whole building that's mapped out, like I said, with those projectors. So it's it's a major effort. But the thing that's interesting about this is that the software that's actually running these applications now has become much more user-friendly, to the point where somebody can come in, and if they're comfortable working with some of the video and video editing software, something as simple as like Microsoft Movie Maker, it follows a lot of the same premise in terms of using the timeline, dropping in video clips and audio clips, doing blends by just overlapping things. Now, there's a lot more sophisticated things that you can do with that, but at the same time, it's using a lot of those same basic kind of features. So it's definitely something where, again, it's become, not this one. This is not in the practical realm. This is something where a huge corporation threw a major budget against something. But we do see things like this. There are companies like Archaeos who has some really nice software out there, DJ media server software, and it's actually more intended for the DJ and the club market. So very flexible, gives them a lot of power for a very affordable price point. So there's some really interesting things that are going on out there right now.
Right. I wanted to mention Archaeos. I just myself have been getting into media servers in the past year and a half, and I was frightened, like a lot of people are, about media servers. I didn't know a lot about them, but Archaeos actually offers, most of them, media servers offer free demo version. That's almost the full version of the software, but there's limitations, like something pops up every 30 seconds or something like that. But media servers are actually, at their root, are very simple. If you can operate multi-part device like a moving light or something like that, it's very simple to start throwing media up onto whatever you have that media server connected through a lighting console.
Yep.
And Archaeos just made it super simple, I think.
Oh, yeah.
I haven't really experienced any of the others just because I haven't gotten to that point yet.
Right. Well, there are, again, talking from the standpoint, I've worked with the folks at Archaeos. I've worked with their product and had some hands-on. Found that very easy to use. Again, Avolite just acquired a media server company called Immersive. Immersive is actually the company that, they used to be a project-driven company, and they did things like the media for the U2 360 tour, for the Rolling Stones tour, for a lot of big corporate event and permanent installations. So they were mainly a content development company who built the hardware just because their content was so media intensive that they needed to build a bigger, better server to run it. And then just last year at Plaza, they came out with a commercial product. So when we're talking about media software, we're not necessarily talking about just any one vendor's product. And again, it comes down to personal preference. But Archaeos is a good option. Avolite's Media Immersive is a good option. You've got Green Hippo, you've got Maxidia, you've got a variety of different products out there. It really just depends on what your needs are. And yes, the Archaeos is Arkaos. You've got that one right. Okay, so focusing a little bit more, getting beyond the lighting and the output side of things, what else is really evolving in our industry that's making a difference? And I think, Justin will back this up just by what he was saying about Archaeos and some of the other things. I think the whole side of things regarding the software control is getting better and simpler.
Well, I don't know about simpler to a point. You can get up and running very quickly, but the level of control some products offer is just mind-boggling. I run a EOS system almost every other week. Well, we'll say once a week. And there's still a couple features that I don't use a lot, and I just never learned how to use.
Sure.
You caught me off guard with that one. That is pretty funny. Control can be as complicated or as simple as you want it to be.
Yep.
Some boards offer greater control than others. It's finding the right control for the right application. You can certainly run the U2 360 tour on a two-scene preset board if you set up your system correctly. Now, will you have as much control as they did on the tour? No, but you'll be able to run it. You're going to want something a little bit more powerful than a two-scene preset board for something like that. So it's finding the right product for the situation, I think.
Yeah. What I've seen, in terms of advancements, and when I say ease of use is a relative term.
Right.
It's easier than it, for me at least. Okay, so again, if I look at my background, I was 20 years in software before I ever came into the lighting industry. And I only came into the lighting industry 5 years ago. When I came in, the first couple of desks I sat down at, I looked back on it like, okay, I need to be, and I was looking at it as being a programmer from a software developer standpoint. I was actually at the code level. Where I see the interface becoming much more user-friendly is it's much more graphical. The software itself is much smarter in terms of, 3, 4, 5 years ago when I was setting up, when I was creating fixtures or pallets, when I was patching fixtures, I had to physically know the DMX address and tell it how many channels I wanted it to take, and on and on and on. And now the software is smart enough that I can just go to a library of fixtures, pick the fixture I want, drop it on my rig, take that fixture and drag my finger across and multiply it to as many fixtures as of that. I've got, okay, I take a Max 700, I drop it on my rig. I now have 24 of those. I take it, I drag my finger across, it now maps out 24 Max 700s for me. Not only does it do that, but good software understands how many, it sets the DMX channel for each one of those for me automatically, and it tells me how many channels it controls. So it's not, one of the things that used to drive LDs crazy, or at least the ones I worked with, was they didn't want to have to count. Okay, it's taking 36 channels, so set this one at 36, set that one at 73. With this, it's just automatically telling them what the next address needs to be. So it's doing all the multiple. It's using the power of what the software should be able to do in a way that's practical for people, so they don't have to go out and do all of that stuff in their head.
I always let the board do the math for me. I always patch first and let the board do the math, and then I go back and address. I don't want to hurt my head doing, I won't say hard math, but I don't want a headache at the end of the day.
Oh, yeah, no, exactly. And that's the thing I found was most guys were, LDs were doing the math in their head and then hollering out to me, okay, set that one at this DMX address and the next one at that and the next one at that. Now it's all being done automatically for you. And when you look at some of the more advanced things, like pixel mapping, that has become much easier.
And then, of course, once RDM gets widely accepted, I'm not saying it's not accepted, but once more people start using it and putting it into their fixtures, you won't even need to know the DMX address of a fixture. The board will find it and say, hey, where do you want this?
Oh, yeah. Well, the thing I love about RDM is the fact that now you've got two-way conversation going on. Now it's not just control sending the signal out to the fixture. It's the fixture providing feedback to the operator saying, hey, there's a problem up here. Do you know about it,
Right.
And so it allows the programmer, the guy running the control, to be a lot more aware of what's going on and, and stay on top of things. So I think that's something we haven't even touched on here. That's going to be a major advancement.
Right. When the board is able to tell you this fixture's lamp is about to die. It's at 1,800 lamp hours. You want to replace it at 2,000. You're not waiting for the lamp to blow anymore. You're going to be proactive and change it before it hits and blows. Before it hits 2,000 hours. So there's the less chance of having a dead spot on stage or losing a fixture in the middle of the show, and that's the worst.
Oh yeah, no, that's the thing, and you look at things, when you go out and you see people on major tours, and now everything's moving over to ArtNet. It's just becoming a much more sophisticated environment, and it's and the rigs that we're seeing are just getting on the big shows are just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But at the same time, there's so much more. Like you say, there's two-way communication. There's a lot more feedback. There's all kinds of things that we haven't even touched on here in terms of things like wireless control that are affecting things. So I think there's a lot of things that we could touch on there, but it's just amazing advances. Okay, so some of the other things that we're seeing now, there's a lot of advances going on in WYSIWYG, not only with CAS, but guys like Light Converse and others, where you're getting a really accurate 3D projection of what your actual rig is going to look like or your scene is going to look like. You can do set design. You can do a lot of things here 3D visually that allows you to do a lot of stuff on the front end or back in your hotel room without having access to the live rig. And the other thing is the other thing a lot of these things are doing is they're a lot less hardware intensive than they used to be. So you don't find them sucking up all your resources.
The perfect example of where WYSIWYG or pre-visualization comes into play, the Super Bowl halftime show. Everybody saw that. There is no way they could have, well, they did have rehearsals beforehand, but there's no way they could have programmed that show in 2 weeks. They had to pre-visualize it, and they did. I'm not sure what system they used, but pre-visualization makes it easier for the designer and programmer to get a chunk of their work done before they even start building the stage in the space.
Oh yeah,
so,
yeah. Yeah, and the thing is too, they can be, the designer and the programmer can be geographically in different locations, but they can share information back and forth because they can share those files.
The beauty of the internet.
Yeah, exactly. It just makes things so much easier from a communication standpoint to move forward. One of the other things that we're seeing, and it's only starting to evolve in this direction now, but we can see that it's moving this way, is we're seeing more multi-function hardware. In other words, you're getting to the point now where one console is going to address both lighting and media. And again, I'm just talking from personal experience, but I know that Avolight has a new desk that they're introducing. Well, they introduced the lighting control desk at LDI last year, the Sapphire Touch, which is their bigger motorized fader, 64 universe, ArtNet capable, lighting console. But where they're moving and what they're going to be introducing at Plaza, well, they're actually showing it this week at ProLight, but it'll be a full rollout at Plaza later in the year, is what they're calling the Sapphire Media, which is going to run, it's going to have two big on-screen multi-touch screens, plus a series of video displays for your media, and you're going to be controlling all of that from one desk. So now, rather than have multiple operators, you can have one person is going to be doing, all that work at one desk, or at least controlling it. They'll be accepting input from multiple desks, maybe, but they're going to be running the control all off of one.
Right.
Justin, I get a question here. Somebody wanted to know, do I know what company did the design for the halftime show? I don't.
I was just going to pull that up. It was, I'm looking at my notes, Bruce Rogers was the production designer from Tribe Design, I believe it is. Here, I'll pull up the article and answer the question so everybody can see it.
Okay.
There we go. So everybody can have the link back to PLSN.com, of course.
Sure.
But there's a whole host of companies that were involved in that, and I'll let the article tell you everything about that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that was a huge. They always are. It's always a huge production, and there's always multiple companies involved. The scope and scale of that. The thing that always amazes me is their ability to roll that out and have it up and running in such a short period of time, and it just really, it amazes me. And, things like wireless help them with stuff like that because they don't have to worry about getting cable and everything out there as well. So.
Right.
Okay, so just talking a little bit about media content, and again, I won't go into the video because it seems like we're having some problems with the refresh rates and things, but if you look at that address that's down there at the bottom of the screen, if you go to vimeo.com, 363-76693, there's some media content stuff that's out there, and really what this is about is how much easier the software is to work with. So again, this product happens to be the immersive product, but it works in a very simple fashion. It's very Windows-like. It's built on a Windows XP platform. But what it allows you to do is build multiple decks, and each of those decks can have up to 4 layers. So that means you can build up to 32 layers of media. But in this case, basically what you're doing is you're working off each of those layers is basically a timeline. And you're dropping your clips in and doing your blends and your overlays and things like that from within there. Now, obviously, there's a lot more sophisticated stuff that you can do, but on the front end, it's very easy to build, simple looks. And just like the Archaeos product, they also have a full-blown server, but then they also have dongle products. So single output, dual output, or 6 output dongles. And that is something that's really going to open up that market to a lot of smaller venues.
Right.
So that, there's a lot more guys that are going to be able to get involved in that kind of technology. I think it'll expand it into the club market and the church market. And I'm already talking to a variety of theaters about their potential use of things like this. In black box spaces and prosceniums. and it all is based then around what kind of projection are they using, what are they using for output. But again, the software is now smart enough that it will go in and do your adjustments for aspect ratio and keystone correction based on the angle of the projector. So there's just a ton of stuff going on in the background that the user doesn't have to concern, or the programmer doesn't have to concern themselves about.
Right.
Anything you want to add there, Justin? Or
I think when it comes to media creation, the limitation on that is your imagination. You've got amazing tools at your disposal from a number of companies. Thinking about it, I can come up with some stuff for a space that I use all the time. It's just how creative and how imaginative you can be. The software will follow you.
Yep. And I think one of the things that I see that's driving this, if you look at the video that obviously didn't run real good before, but that Nokia rollout, BlackBerry also used a whole 3D video mapping program to do a rollout of the new BlackBerry. So I think that, at least at this point in time, entertainment and corporate are really driving this business. They're really thinking of new, innovative ways to use the technology and move it out there. And, I guess we've got them to thank for putting large amounts of money against this, which then makes it easier for these companies to develop commercial projects.
Right.
So we just want to run through here a couple of slides in conclusion, talking about how converging technology is affecting different parts of our marketplace, different kinds of venues. So the first one we were going to talk about was touring. And probably the best example that I know of, and I'm sure Justin will have some other examples as well, was the U2 360 tour. The reason I cite this one is because it did the best job of bringing together all of these advanced technologies. So when you look at what was going on in the U2 rig, and again, you can look at it out there on YouTube. There's plenty of 360 tour videos. But one of the things here was it blended not only LED, which that's a large LED wall right there in the middle, and media, because they were projecting images of the band and then lots of graphics, but also motion control, because that large cone was coming up out of the stage, and the motion control had to be smart enough to talk back and forth with the media server, so it understood. So the media server understood the size of the projection surface that it was projecting onto, so it could constantly be adjusting the aspect ratio. So you weren't just seeing a head rising up out of the stage, you were seeing a full-blown image, but it was just adjusting the size of the image as more projection surface became available, until it was, the entire height of that huge rig, which was, I don't even remember how many stories tall that was, but, a really impressive example of bringing together a lot of disparate technologies to work pretty much seamlessly together. Seamlessly in that it took about 2 days per venue to set this thing up.
Well, there was a reason there's 3 of these rigs running around the country and around the world, because it took so long to set up.
Yeah, exactly. For those of you who don't know, this was also a great example of leapfrogging, where the band had multiple rigs. So, you're talking about a multi-million-dollar rig here. They had 3 rigs traveling around the country, always staying ahead of them, because this rig took 2 days to set up, and at least 2 days, to set up and fine-tune to the point where the band could then walk on stage. Yeah, Mark is asking about some design stuff, and we're going to get into that. We've got a couple of slides that will talk about that, and I think Justin's got some good examples there. And anything else on the touring side that you want to bring in as good case studies or good examples, Justin, before we move on?
Well, nothing in the scale of U2 360.
There pretty much is nothing on the scale of that tour.
Not yet. Give it time. Give it time. Somebody will try and outdo them. There's a couple other examples like Rihanna's tour. She had a couple pods that not only they projected iMag and content on, but they had lights behind it that would light up, and it's just amazing some of the things that people are doing with motion control and projection right now on tour, and it's just going to get better and better.
Yeah, yeah. I think, just like in the early days, Genesis pushed the envelope and caused a lot of the early development, moving lights and things. I think that on this last tour, U2 really pushed the envelope. They actually caused two companies, Kinesis, who was the motion control company, and Immersive, who was the media company, to actually gain enough momentum to become commercial products. Because before that, both of them were project-driven companies. Kinesis designed a product specific for the motion control of the 360 tour, and Immersive developed the media server and a lot of the content. So, guys like this that push the envelope, are where we kind of owe a gratitude. We owe them some thanks for where our industry is going.
Right.
The next area I was looking at, it really struck me when I saw X Factor last year, is what's going on in a lot of the TV environments, particularly things like X Factor, American Idol, America's Got Talent, a lot of those type of shows. And what's impressed me there is how much the media has taken over as a major component of the lighting itself. Now it's not just about the media content, it's about the media actually being a major component of the lighting.
Right. Last night, American Idol was on for 2 hours. Now, I am not an American Idol person. My wife happens to be, and I'm kind of still upset that I didn't get to watch Sons of Guns last night, but we'll move on past that. I was watching the live show or whatever. I thought it was pretty cool, some of the stuff they're doing. They had that 3D textured screen, 3D texture wall or whatever that they were projecting on, or I'm not sure if it was projection or an LED wall, but some of the stuff they're doing was pretty cool there off to the sides. And then they're bringing in Sharpies for each act. They're realigning these Sharpies during the breaks for aerials. In the past year, we've seen more aerial shots, lighting aerials for television and film. I think it's amazing some of the work that they're doing. So we're not limited now just to live concerts. We're in television. We're being featured. Our stuff is front and center, just like the talent. We're framing them, making them look good, like we always do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that it's kind of brought our industry to the forefront, more than when people just go to concerts, because, again, in my non-industry friends are always asking me, how did they do these different things? They'll see a particular look. I remember one of the biggest ones we had, and we actually talked about it in an early webinar, was the season that Adam Lambert was on American Idol, and they did this great backwash look. And it wasn't anything that would have been unique to any of us, but it just blew away people who were just watching it on TV because it wasn't something they were used to seeing, and it was just, I think, again, it's brought our industry to the forefront more than it used to be. So, television, again, is doing a lot to drive things, even to the point where you look at shows like Glee, and what's the new one that's on now? Smash, or there's another new one that just came on. But a lot of it is actually, much more highlighting lighting going on in more of a Broadway kind of environment.
Right.
So people that aren't able to attend live shows are not seeing what our industry does for those kind of environments as well.
My favorite is when I get a call from my 9-year-old niece asking, how did they do that? Because she knows I work in lighting. How did they do that? That looks so cool.
Yep. Well, my biggest claim to fame there is that my 13-year-old granddaughter used to be on stage as one of the actors, and last season she said, "No, Pop, I don't want to do that anymore. I'm part of the crew now." And this last show that they did Joseph and the Amazing Dreamcoat, whatever the name of that play is.
Right.
She ran the light board.
You've got a very smart granddaughter.
Yeah, at 13, so it was like, hey, that's pretty cool, So, again, I think it speaks to the fact that the technology is getting to the point where, and And I could say this, the younger generation is so much more in tune with, now not just computers, but, with everything that's going on with iPads and everything else, that all this stuff is so intuitive to them, it's just second nature. I mean, my grandson can troubleshoot things way before I can, including stuff in my industry. He can figure out problems on a lighting console before I can, generally. So, theatrical. This is probably a little bit more your realm than mine, Justin. I cited a couple of things here. Somebody had mentioned use of some of these converging technologies in productions like Ka. Spider-Man is probably one of the best examples or the worst examples, I don't know which, in terms of, really trying to push the envelope and how hard how difficult it is to, to bring all these things together. But as people like this stretch that envelope and push things to their breaking point, it's just going to get much more easy for people in the future.
Right. Well, the couple examples you have here, Spider-Man, everybody's seen it, well, not seen it, but heard the drama behind it. Technology-wise, I would love to see it in a heartbeat. One of the things that stands out in my head are the panels that they're using throughout the show. They're LED panels that are basically legs that move throughout the show, so they're motion controlled, but they're tied to the media server. I believe it's the M-Box. They're all tied together, so as these panels go in front and behind each other going across stage, the image that's projecting on them looks like it's being thrown from a projector front of house.
Yeah,
but it's actually an LED screen, so as panel 1 goes in front of panel 2, the image is going across those two panels. I'm doing hand gestures, which nobody can see, so I'll just stop that.
I've done that in the past, too. I realized after a while that I'm sitting here doing, like, shadow puppet shows, and nobody knows that I'm doing them, so.
Real quick before you go on, Ka there, I want to mention real quick, the interesting part about Ka there, that slanted part that you see there is actually a stage that moves, stands up, and can rotate 360 degrees. It has the pins that shoot out, but what's neat about it is the projection for this is very simple. There's a water scene, so it's projecting water onto the surface. We're looking at a side view of the stage right now, but the water is just projected. So as an actor walks across, there's sensors in the floor that talk back to the media server saying, hey, somebody stepped here. I need you to produce a splash. Now, how big is that splash? It's depending on how hard or how soft they stepped on the surface. So the media server then projects a splash or a fire effect. I'm not 100% on all the different effects it does, but the media server and the motion control interact. And as the stage spins 360 degrees, the projection is cut off, so it only stays on that surface, and you don't see the spill go back onto further up stage or anything like that. It's pretty amazing, some of the stuff that Ka has done. This is all custom-built stuff, the media server at least, for Ka.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, so much of this stuff, you get some designers that just take it to the nth degree, and like you said, okay, this was all custom stuff, but what it's doing is it's ultimately driving what's at some point going to become commercially available to everybody.
Right.
So it's a great way because you have these bigger budget venues and bigger budget artists that are able to drive a lot of the technology, which ultimately we're all going to be able to take benefit of.
Right.
If we look at things like corporate events, again, just in general, stepping much more into the whole converging technology, we're seeing them use much more of the media elements, variable motion control, where they're flying in different elements of a scene, they're projecting on different surfaces. They're using things like keystoning, where they bring in 4 separate LED screens, and when they all merge, they've got one blended image. So there's so much stuff that they're able to do now on the back end that it really makes the ability to, to get particular looks and effects virtually unlimited. So, when a corporate guy sits down with a client, they're really able to just push the envelope and come up with some really unique things. Again, go to YouTube, type in BlackBerry immersive 3D, and that'll probably get you to that BlackBerry rollout. Or if you go to that Vimeo site that we had given you earlier, or just send me an email and request it, and I'll send you the link. That gives you some idea of how the corporate market is really pushing these technologies as well.
Right.
House of worship, we are working with both very large churches right on down to very small churches, and the amazing thing is that pretty much across the board, even to the smaller churches, they're really taking advantage of a lot of this technology. We're working with, with fairly small churches that are getting into moving yoke projectors and, media servers. We basically ask them what kind of budgets they need to work within, and then we tailor a system to meet that need. But there are things out there that would fit within a lot of these kind of environments.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that you've seen in the, I know in your past life, one of the markets you did a lot of work with was House of Worship.
Right.
Anything in terms of these technologies that you've seen there?
We just actually did one, Cherry Hill Baptist Church. We wrote about it in PLSN. They used a number of different technologies, LED, moving lights. I believe Barbizon Lighting Company did it, and just some of the imagery that they were able to do. They were able to wash the sides in a stock gobo. It's amazing what you can do with a stock gobo. Nobody else knows it's a stock except us lighting people, but just the different array of colors they were able to do, the eye magging, the media on the screens. I wish I had an image of it, but it's just amazing some of the stuff that you can do for House of Worship right now. They've gone and upgraded their production value. I don't want to say it was lacking before, but they realized to excite the audience and to get them into the houses of worship is add some value to the production to make it more exciting.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and we've seen a lot of that. We've also seen, somebody was asking about, corporate events and others. We're seeing a lot of things. Again, if you go to that Vimeo site, there's a thing here. This is actually the Ulster Museum in Ireland. They have a 360-degree, three-dimensional wall that they project to. They've got 4 projectors, and basically people in this space can see, whales swimming around them, stalagmites and stalactites growing up out of a cave. So there's some really interesting, unique ways that people have thought to apply the technology, and there really isn't any venue that is, that it's unique to. You look at things like festival and events and architecture. You're seeing a lot of things. In this case, this was the Manhattan Bridge down in New York City. They 3D video mapped the inside of the tunnel going under the bridge. They actually video mapped the outside wall of the bridge. So again, you've got a Vimeo link here that you can go to, or you can do the same type of thing. All this content is out there on YouTube, so it's a really great place to look for a lot of this stuff and give you better ideas, about the applications themselves. Mm-hmm. The thing about clubs that's interesting, they generally work, other than the Vegas casinos, they tend to work with rather limited budgets. It's a nice way of saying that sometimes they can be cheap, and there's products out there that meet their needs. And a lot of the stuff that we're talking about, whether it's LEDs or LED walls or video mapping software, the Archaeos product has one that's targeted specifically at this marketplace. So there's a lot of really strong opportunity, for virtually anybody to get into these kind of markets. From the smallest to the largest, we see more and more people that are moving into these areas.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, architectural. I think the one up here of the outside of the Superdome for the Super Bowl is one of Justin's favorites.
No, that wasn't from the Super Bowl. That was from the anniversary of Katrina, I believe. The Solomon Group lit that up with a bunch of Martin exterior fixtures, and that is a Kobo being projected, the Mercedes logo. I don't know what fixture or how far away that is, but it's a nice example of color changing lighting for just architectural. There's no show or whatever that they're trying to promote. They're just making the skyline look visual or pleasing in New Orleans.
Yep, exactly. And these other examples are examples of projection and video mapping onto the outside of buildings, museum spaces, and architectural pieces where they're using the surfaces in an artistic way to get an architectural concept across. So, again, if you're looking at this from an architectural aspect, there are people that are pushing the envelope in those areas as well. Although it was only a temporary thing, that Nokia rollout, was using a piece of architecture as a projection device. So, it's definitely something that's playing a stronger role in what we do. Okay, so basically, that's what we've got to cover. I just wanted to give you some resources here. There's some stuff that Creative Stage Lighting has out there that are both, Facebook and Twitter as well as YouTube, so there's a lot of clips you can go through there. Justin's got some resources there for you through PLSN and iSquint and Pro Lighting Space and Fair2Face. You have a lot of vehicles out there, don't you, Justin?
Oh, just a couple.
Yeah, just a couple. But we gave you some other ideas out here. Some of those are places where you can go look at content. Some of those are where you can go read articles. Some of them are where you can go participate in forums and things like that. The question is, are the slides available online? The slides aren't available online. What will be available is we record this session, and then within a week after the podcast or after the webinar, it will be posted on our website as a podcast. So anybody who wants to go back and review this, or anybody who wants to shorten up my long-windedness and go to specific parts of it, they'll be able to do that just by going to the podcast. You can download that to your iPod or iPad so you can view it when you're on the road. There's a variety of different ways that you can go about doing that.
Don't leave out the Android people.
Yeah, exactly. Well, anybody can download. Does anybody have any questions for us before we wrap up? We've got we can take a couple of extra minutes here before we need to go. So if anybody has any questions about any examples we use. Okay, so okay, it's Ivan. How you doing, Ivan? Ivan is an old hand. He's been with us since I think the very first webinar that we did like 3 years ago. And Richard Cadena says hi. I know Richard and you got together when he was down doing some seminars. He wants to know if any of us know of other architects that are doing production design stuff like Mark Fisher. He's citing Cirque du Soleil, Ka, U2 360 Tour, etc. In the entertainment industry. I don't know specifically names of guys that are doing architectural stuff, but I know that a lot of the guys that I know in the industry do crossover stuff. Jeff Ravitz is the lighting designer for Bruce Springsteen and others, but he also does a lot of work on the architectural side. He also works in theme park design and things like that. Let's see, who else? Seth Jackson does a lot of lighting design, but he also does set design. He's done things like Star Wars The Tour, and a variety of things there, and he gets involved in a wide variety of projects. I think that in a lot of cases you find that guys in our business are not solely restricted to the entertainment segment. Some of them may be, but the guys that I know seem to be doing kind of a crossover of things, fixed installation work, touring acts, corporate events, things like that. So I think it's kind of an across-the-board kind of thing.
Right.
Justin, what's your thoughts there? Do you know?
Well, going to people crossing back over between the different areas of lighting, it's kind of like, why do these mainstream actors go back to Broadway? Broadway doesn't pay. It's because they're there for the art of it, not necessarily the payment. So just like in Broadway, some designers, they do certain things because they love to do it, others that they get paid to. Not saying they don't love it, but some pay better than others. Do I know of any other architects / designers? Not off the top of my head, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I think it's safe to say, one of the things that we see as a trend among production companies is that we see more and more guys using that skill set to cross over into the permanent installation market or the corporate event market. Especially for the small to mid-sized production company, it's tough for those guys to get involved in a lot of the bigger tours because they just don't have the level of inventory that's required to support something like that. But they have a skill set, and they have people that have skills. And so where we see them, if you look at what House of Worship market is doing now with major staging, you look at something like the Lakewood Church down in Houston, they've got some fairly sophisticated design people that are involved there because they run, very large scale shows, on the scale of, what's going on in a TV production or a touring event, that type of thing.
Right.
Okay, question is, how would one go about learning these new technologies?
I got great resources. They're right there in front of you.
Yeah. I mean, I would start off there. It's interesting. If you go back to some of the earlier podcasts that we did, Richard Cadena and I did one about, and I apologize because I don't remember exactly what the title of it was, but it was about growing your career in the lighting industry. And we talked about a whole bunch of things from formal education, getting involved with a college that has a tech arts program, to serving as an intern, either paid or unpaid, with a production company to get involved. And a lot of it had to do with, kind of starting at the bottom and working your way up. So it's hard. There is no one simple answer. It's kind of like, my wife works for a college, and her job is to help people find internships, and she's always looking to match people with what their interests are. So I would say, get in touch with the local production companies, the local theaters that you have in your community, guys that that are doing the kind of work that you would be interested in, and then see what you can do to work with them. My godson is a photographer, and he volunteered with a very high-level local photographer that does very upscale weddings and things like that. He's now first photographer on a lot of weddings just based on that. I think that correlates to any industry and any area where you're looking to grow yourself is who can you get involved with and what can you do to grow your skill set. So right. I would just look for local opportunities. Right.
The other thing sounds like Layden's talking about how do you learn these new technologies like media servers and stuff. If you want to learn specifically how to operate something, if it's software driven like Archaeos or Kinesis, I'm sorry, not Kinesis, Hippo or something like that, Immersive, check out their website. See if they have a free download demo version. If you're looking at consoles, almost every single console manufacturer has a free offline editor. It's probably the full software, but it doesn't output DMX. That's fine. There's a way to learn there. One of my favorite resources, not necessarily for lighting, but almost anything, is YouTube. YouTube videos are great. I mentioned this the other day. I learned how to tie my shoe again by watching a YouTube video because I wear boots a lot. But YouTube has videos for almost anything you want to learn about. When it comes to actual products, trade shows are the best place to play with fixtures. Learn about new products there. Look for local events. I know there's a couple in the major markets every year. I know Four Wall, Barbizon, Creative Stage Lighting puts on a tour, right?
Yeah, we do open houses around the country. You know, we've been in most major markets, and we'll be back again this year, and we'll be posting those schedules on our website. So, and that'll, you know, a lot of this technology that we talked about today, we represent. You know, we represent Avolites and Immersive and Kinesis and a variety of others, and a lot of that stuff is at our booths at trade shows and at our open houses. So, you know, for instance, any of you who are out on the West Coast, we're going to be at USITT next week, and we're going to be talking about a lot of this technology. So any of you who are going to be out that neck of the woods, you know, Justin and I are both going to be there. You know, feel free to stop by, say hi, and ask some questions. We'll be doing things like Plaza Focus in Nashville in July. You know, and as Justin said, we do our own open house series. It just depends on what marketplace you're in. But we've done them in Vegas and LA and Houston and Dallas and Nashville and a variety of different places. So, you know, check our calendar out. If you want to come out and see us, we'd be glad to show you some stuff and sit down and talk.
The last resource I have is I know Creative Stage Lighting. You guys only have the one. No, you have two offices, correct? One in New York and one on the West Coast?
We only have the one production office. We've got regional offices around the country, but the only one where we actually have gear is up here in New York.
Right. Check with local vendors as well. You know, see if they have things going on, open houses, you know, product tours, or you know they have a new fixture that they're looking at for something. You know, it never hurts to check out a local vendor as well for learning about new products, seeing them up close. Not to say Creative doesn't do that, but you know.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, if anybody's in our neck of the woods, we're glad to have them come in. It's just that we're way upstate New York, so people don't tend to be in our area that often. But I'll tell you, if you want to do something like that, a great place if you're ever in South Florida, you've got Martin, Chavez, and Roby Lighting, all within a relatively short distance of each other. All of whom have showrooms and are more than happy to show you their technologies, and that all of them span from LEDs to moving lights to LED walls to digital projection. So there's a wealth of stuff there. It's just, you know, picking and choosing what you're really looking for. Okay. If anybody, if we don't have any other questions, you will be getting after this thank you notification and a brief survey. The survey is just to kind of give your feedback on what you thought about the session today, because that helps us in planning ones for the future. It also asks you for a little bit of input in terms of future topics that you would like to see covered. That being said, you will be getting a notice coming out shortly. Richard Cadena is going to be coming back in April and doing one with us. Topic yet to be finalized, but I think we're going to be talking about a lot of industry issues and regulations and things like that, talking about ETCP and different certifications and those kind of things. But we'll give you full detail on that. We've also got Seth Jackson, who is the LD, as I mentioned, for Star Wars tours and has designed for Toby Keith and Barry Manilow and a wide variety of others. He's going to be coming in this summer to do some discussions with us. We're trying to get back to the schedule of doing one a month. I really want to thank Justin, because any of you who haven't been here from the front end don't realize how much it takes to put one of these together. And you know, Justin's really worked with us on this, and we appreciate his time and his effort and his input.
Oh, I'm happy to be here. I'm always willing to do another one. These are a lot of fun.
Good, good, good. I'm glad, and it's always nice to know we have additional resources. So I want to thank everybody for being here. And with that being said, I'll sign off and let everybody get going. And hopefully we'll see you again at future events. So thanks very much, and have a good Thursday.